freedom, pass from hand to yearning hand, and the vision of our fathers spread hope throughout this land, as the dream some fought and died for in my heart becomes my own. I will strive to keep her promise, America, my home. America, America, may God bless America, and freedom reign across America, my home. From the shorelines to the prairies, to the cities great and small, we have reaped the fruits of justice and liberty for all. So with deep appreciation for the blessings we have.
This is Dr. George Simon, and this is Character Matters. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we face as a country, and that affects so many aspects of our lives. Sorry for the outage there in audio for our listeners. A bit of technical difficulty here. We're in the midst of some pretty significant storms here in the Little Rock, Arkansas area where I broadcast from. The immediate threat has passed for right now, but there's a line of thunderstorms coming through this area, and we have had some glitches, and so we're going to monitor the situation closely. Hopefully we will not have any power or internet outages that will disrupt the program any further, and I apologize for the brief technical glitch here at the beginning of the program with the audio. At any rate, once again, welcome to Character Matters. As I said, this is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we face and that affects so many aspects of our daily lives. And if you have a question you want to ask, or you have a story you want to share, or just an opinion you'd like to render, happy to take your call and happy to talk with you at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. I'm pleased to announce that the latest book that Kathy Armistead and I published just a week and a half ago through Amazon Independent Publishing has been doing really well right out of the gate. Thank you very much for your support, all of you who have gone to Amazon. I haven't seen any reviews posted yet. I'm hoping they will come soon. One of the things that has carried my work throughout the years and made such a and given such shelf life, should I say, to my books especially In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People, which will be out in print a full 20 years this coming September. And also my book, Character Disturbance, The Phenomenon of Our Age, which was released in 2010 and will be out 6 years this April. One of the things that is responsible for that are the fantastic reviews, online reviews, especially at Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com and other online booksellers. And you can't get any better validation than from the readers themselves. Every now and then we have experienced some folks who are probably not legitimate. Maybe a couple are, but every now and then there seems to be a plant of sorts, a decoy, an individual posting a review, trying to steer someone someplace else. And this is kind of a dirty trick sometimes that competitive authors do. But by and large, I am extremely fortunate and consider myself blessed beyond measure to have unbelievable reviews. When you get hundreds of reviews in the same vein, pretty much, and consistently lauding the same kinds of things, it's a kind of validation that just cannot be matched, and it's a kind of goodwill that spreads that you can't match that either. So I am very fortunate. I consider myself very blessed, and thank you sincerely, all of you who have purchased books and written reviews, and thank you especially to those who have taken the time and sought out our latest book, Dr. George Simon and M. Catherine Armistead, our latest co-authored offering called How Did We End Up Here? Addressing the issue that folks in toxic relationships find themselves asking, the question, how do they end up where they are? Whether they're in the midst of a really bad relationship or they're at the end of a relationship that they know has no future because it is so toxic and they have to move on. And they want to understand how it happened, how to pick up the pieces, how to move on, and what especially they can do to prevent a similar thing from happening again, or at least increase the odds that such a thing won't happen again. It also addresses the question of how we ended up here as a society, where we are now, in what I call the character-disturbed age. And so that's the subtitle of How Did We End Up Here? It's a guidebook to surviving and thriving in a character-disordered world. That is our world today. A truly character-impaired world. As a matter of fact, we're so desensitized. We are so desensitized to poor character that we just we're not shocked anymore. We're not shocked or dismayed. I can remember, folks, this will tell you how old I am. Well, maybe it won't, because maybe some folks out there listening will not understand. But this is how old I am. I can remember when it was scandalous, when it was truly scandalous that marriages fell apart, that someone actually was divorcing, especially if they were divorcing because one of the partners had been unfaithful. It was scandalous. And I can remember as a child, I can remember watching a television program, a pretty hokey program now that I think about it. And as I saw some reruns later in life, I realized how hokey it was. But I can remember the program Divorce Court, where the shenanigans of folks who were suing for divorce, suing their partners for divorce, and suing for property or for custody or for other things, had to take the stand and had to be cross-examined, and then the truth would come out about what was really the story about why the relationship fell apart. And I can remember during these programs sitting around with the family watching these things, how people would comment about this or that aspect of somebody's character being on full display. There was a time when character did matter to most of us. It still matters. That's why this program is titled that. Character has always mattered. As de Tocqueville never said, but is reported to have said, America is great because it is good. In other words, when the character of the country is solid, then there's greatness to be realized. Whoever said that had a big point, even if de Tocqueville never actually said that, or maybe never said it in that way. So it's always mattered. But the problem is that as our character-fostering institutions have declined and crumbled, and as the character crisis has grown, we are less and less shocked and less dismayed when we see character disturbance before our eyes. It's truly a tragedy. It's truly a tragedy, and it's costing us in so many ways. It's costing us nearly everything. It's costing our safety, our security, our financial and economic well-being. It's costing us trust in our elected representatives. We can't trust folks because we can't assume that they have sufficient integrity of character to faithfully do our bidding. We can't trust it. It's a sad, sad statement. But it is the reality of our time. It's the phenomenon of our age. And so, to help address it, I have written the books that I have written: In Sheep's Clothing, Understanding and Dealing with Manipulative People; Character Disturbance, The Phenomenon of Our Age; my book for the Christian faith community, The Judas Syndrome; and my latest offering with Kathy Armistead, How Did We End Up Here? And that's a little bit of what I'd like to talk about tonight. And if you'd like to make a contribution to the program, if you have some thoughts about how we ended up here, or maybe you have a question about how you ended up in the situation you did in your relationship, or how to pick up the pieces and go on, or maybe you have just another story to share that you think would be of interest to the listeners, or a question to ask, give us a call at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. I'll be happy to take your call. Well, I have a series of articles going right now on my blog at manipulative-people.com. That's www.manipulative-people.com. I have a new series of articles on becoming a better person. And I'm being a little unsure right now about how long this series will go. I think it probably will go at least for the next 4 or 5 weeks, possibly 6 weeks. But this series will provide some vignettes, some illustrative vignettes about just what it takes these days to confront head on the the deficiencies in one's character that can wreak havoc in your life, in a person's life, and what is really necessary to reshape oneself, to really, in a sense, be born again, and to become truly a better person, a person of greater integrity and character. You know, I see folks, I have seen in my practice, my professional practice, therapy practice over the years, I have seen folks of all ages, across the age spectrum. And I've dealt with a fair number of folks who, in midlife, have finally come to the realization that the pills they were taking for depression weren't going to fix things, and the pills they were taking for anxiety weren't going to fix things, and the pills they were taking for to help them control their impulses weren't going to change things. Not really. The only thing that was going to really change things is they were going to have to change their stripes. They were going to have to redefine who they were. They were going to have to claim some principles and be willing to stand steadfastly by them. In short, they were going to have to develop both some strength of character and some integrity of character if they were going to really lead a life worth living. And it was my great pleasure, and I want to say that with a lot of passion. It was my great pleasure to facilitate in any way I could that kind of growth. You know, there was a debate for many years within the helping professions. There are so many of them today, from psychology to psychiatry to professional counseling to marriage and family counseling, social work. There are so many of these allied helping professionals. And it seems like just about everybody has had some experience with therapy in one way or another. Where 50, 60 years ago, that was not true. And it's been my great pleasure to really facilitate growth in those folks who have come to realize that character is the real issue. It's the defining issue of our time, perhaps the defining issue of a lifetime. And once the person decided that they were going to be a different kind of person, but didn't quite know how to do it, that was the beginning. That opened the door. And over the course of time, over the gathering information, doing research, building upon what I had been trained to do, disregarding some of the tired and worn out and inadequate notions and paradigms that I was given as a student, and moving on to that, from that, I was able to come up with some tools and some methods that would actually help people become the best version of themselves. And what a joy. What a joy that work is. And I have to tell you, I've dealt with some really nefarious characters on the front end. You know, I had some serious character issues some folks who were referred to me precisely because other therapists didn't want to work with them, had written them off as unworkable. Still, there are many clinicians, unfortunately far too many. This is something I address in professional training workshops all the time. There's far too many professionals out there who will tell you that when it comes to personality and character, there's no fix, because things are just kind of etched in stone, and people don't change their stripes, so to speak. But I'm here to tell you that that's not true. People can grow. Even people who are seriously character impaired. You know, in my books and in my writings online, as you'll see if you go to manipulative-people.com, or the other blog I write for at Psychology, Philosophy, and Real Life at counselingresource.com, counseling with 2 L's, resource.com. You'll see in my books and in those writings there are many examples of individuals who have changed. And as I make the point in those articles, there's a difference between someone having problematic traits in their character and being somewhere along, therefore, what I call the spectrum of character disturbance, and someone who's fully disordered in character. To rightfully be considered disordered, a person's personality has to be so extreme in its dysfunction, so inflexible in its dysfunction, and so deviant from the norm that it causes severe impairment in a person's ability to function in a social atmosphere. Well, I got to tell you, in our crazy times, it's hard to meet that criteria. In this cast of characters that want to be President of the United States, there are many impaired characters, many of whom have dropped out, but there were many. And you'd be hard-pressed to say that the personality styles of any of these folks was so extreme, so inflexible, or so deviant from the norm, that's the key right there, that they couldn't function very well. As a matter of fact, some of the individuals with the greatest personality disturbances find that works for them and is getting them places. And they're amassing great power and influence and sometimes wealth as a result. So even the very definitions that we've had for what constitutes a disturbance of character so great that it is rightfully considered to be a disorder, we need to re-examine that. We need to re-examine that very closely. That's something I give my workshop attendees something to think about when I do my training. And by the way, we got some training coming up in the month of May. Back-to-back trainings just about the first week of May. I'll be in the New York City area, a couple of places in Long Island, and then also in the Broadway Theater District, right in the heart of Manhattan, in the Times Square area. So we'll be in New York in May. You can go to my website at my blog site at manipulative-people.com and see the schedule. You can also go to the cross country education seminars website and search under my name, Dr. George Simon, for the workshops, and you'll see the calendar of events. There'll be more coming up, and I'll have more announcements after 2 weeks after the New York area workshops. I'll be in Springfield, Missouri, then Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then Oklahoma City. So be sure to check the schedule if you're interested. These are professional workshops. They're intended for helping professionals. They're open to the general public, but they're geared toward professionals, and the price tag is commensurate with that, so I have to warn you about that in advance. Still, they're open to anyone who wants to come, and so if you want more information about the schedule of workshops, the website and the blog site are updated all the time. You can go to www.manipulative-people.com, click on the seminars tab at on the site map at the top of the homepage, and you'll see where all the workshops are that are coming up in the next couple of months. And you can also go, as I said, to the cross-country education website and get the details by searching under my name, Dr. George Simon. So if you want to give us a call, once again, the number is 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. I'm particularly interested in hearing from someone tonight who might have a story to share about doing some personal rebuilding in character. As I said earlier, it's been my great fortune in my professional career to serve as a sort of coach and a guide, both for individuals who have come to realize that they needed to take greater stock of themselves and build some greater integrity in themselves, and have been willing to do the work to do just that. All they needed was a sense of direction about how to do it, and the determination, the inner motivation to do it, and that's all it really took to become a better person. And that's why the series of articles on my blog at manipulative-people.com over the next few weeks will be devoted to the topic of becoming a better person. There are so many stories that I could share, so many stories, heartwarming stories. Many individuals who have been in really bad places in their lives. Some folks who have done some really awful things, but managed to turn their life around. And one of the things that I've said before on this show, and I'll say it again because I don't think it can be said often enough, but one of the things that I've written about on the blog and in my books has to do with what really helps a person turn things around. And one of the things that I have learned over all these many years is that healthy, not toxic, but healthy shame is really a strong motivator for positive change in many people. And that is at odds, that fact is at odds with what the professional research has been trying to tell us for years. You know, I was talking to someone today about just how untrustworthy so much of our scientific data is. You know, I was just talking over lunch with someone today about the fact that now there's a study out, purportedly, that extolling the virtues of bacon. You know, bacon has gotten a bad rap for a lot of reasons. You know, most bacon is treated with nitrates, which turn into nitrosamines, and they're pretty cancer-causing. Most bacon is also smoked. and it's also heavy in sodium, and that's got drawbacks. And so, you know, and not to mention the fact that it's almost all pure animal fat, the worst kind, the saturated, cholesterol-laden fat, the kind that's supposed to be the worst for us. But then along comes a study saying, actually bacon's got these certain antioxidant chemicals in there and certain other amino chains that can be Alzheimer's preventatives. So eat your bacon and maybe it'll help stave off Alzheimer's. These kinds of things come up, all the time. And then there'll be another study 6 months later that poo-poos the whole thing. We went through this with oat bran. We went through this with so many different things. It's so hard to trust the data. It's so hard. And as a clinician, my number one agenda was to help people out. I wanted to do some good. And I had to learn to be a real skeptic when it comes to any of the things that I had been taught or any of the things that I read in the literature. I had to. And I found that when I did become more skeptical, and I started to observe more closely and let my clients teach me, I found that I learned a lot more reliable information in the long run, much more reliable. My patients were the greatest teachers. They still are. I still learn from them. Hopefully, I impart to them some helpful knowledge that helps them on their way to building a better self. True. But I still learn from them. They still teach me plenty. They teach me about what works and what doesn't work. And one of the things that I realized is that what the professional community was saying to us year after year after year and study after study after study, that all shame is bad. It's bad. It's damaging to your self-esteem, and nothing's worse than that, of course. That was how the literature was spewing forth. That we just can't damage little Johnny or little Sandy's self-esteem in any way. So we can't make her or him feel badly about who they are as a person, only about what they have done. Guilt, okay. If we have to be guilty, at least it serves some constructive purpose. Shame serves no purpose, only does damage. And what my clients taught me, they taught me this just undeniably so, is that shame, in the right doses and of the right type, was really a constructive agent for change in so many people. It was only when these troubled individuals no longer were happy with who they were as a person. It's only when they took that look in the mirror and didn't like what they saw. It's only when they couldn't live with themselves as the person that they'd become or had allowed themselves to become that they really got motivated to change. Not just change the way they do things. Yes, to be sure they did that. But to more than just change the way they did things, to change their attitudes about things, to change the way they saw things, to change the way they thought about things, to change the way they approach things, things about their very character, things about themselves, the way they approached things, questioning their core beliefs, reassessing them, and questioning who they were as a person, how they wanted to define themselves, how they wanted to be seen. You know, we see the effects of our shameless age in the fact that people can behave in a way. I won't name names here, but the cast of characters you can imagine for yourself, who fits the bill. But in this current cast of characters running for President of the United States and trying to get their party's nomination, there are several folks who say and do things and who hold themselves out in such a way that many people would scratch their head and say, don't they see how they're coming across? Don't they see how they appear? Don't they, if they did, they would have to be horrified. They must just not see it. They must just not see how other people are seeing them. Otherwise, they wouldn't present themselves the way they are. Well, I'm here to tell you, folks, that in our shameless age, there are too many folks who, despite the reprehensible aspects of their character, are perfectly content with who they are. Not only that, if you have a problem with who they are, then they think you're nuts, that you have a problem. This is what's often at the heart of toxic relationships. This is one of the reasons why Kathy and I wrote the book, How Did We End Up Here? This is many times how people end up in that situation. It's a mark of our shameless age. It has been wrong. I don't care how many studies some misguided folks do. It's been wrong to assert that all shame is bad. In fact, in recent years, in the last 4 or 5 years, some studies have finally come along that take issue with this notion that's been promoted for 40 years or more, that all shame is bad and is detrimental to one's self-esteem, and that's necessarily bad. Like a person can't have too much self-esteem. We all know that some people can. Anybody that's ever dealt with a narcissistic individual knows this. A person can think way too much of themselves. And it doesn't have to be a cover or a compensation for underlying feelings of insecurity. This is the point that I made in all my books and writings. So, perhaps you've been in a relationship like that. Perhaps you've survived one. Perhaps you've had to deal with some aspects of yourself that have struggled to get, and you've struggled as a result to get a balanced sense of self-esteem and who you really are. Perhaps you're one of those folks who at some point took a look in the mirror, didn't like what you saw, and decided to make of yourself a better person. Or perhaps you've been in a relationship with someone who should have done that, but never did, because they were perfectly content with their disturbed or disordered character and thought everybody else had a problem. Whatever the case may be, if you have a story you'd like to share, or a question you'd like to ask, or just something you'd like to contribute to the conversation, give us a call at 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. Well, I'm going to be, as I said, traveling again in the month of May quite heavily. So I want to let the listeners know now that there's a chance there's a chance, depending on how crazy my schedule gets, especially because it'll be in the springtime and sometimes weather can be a factor with air travel. There's a chance that Friday night, or excuse me, that Sunday night's program will be a replay of an earlier broadcast. We always try and give advance notice when that is true, either on the ucy.tv website or on my blog, and every week's new blog post on Friday late afternoons. I usually mention whether the program is going to be live or pre-recorded. So just fair warning that in the month of May there may be a couple of occasions, maybe one occasion or so, in which the program will not be a live program and you won't be able to call in. You might hear, because the programs are recorded and because people do call in from time to time to the program, you might hear a call in from someone. You might hear a discussion between me and someone else, but you will not be listening necessarily to a live program, and so you won't be able to call in yourself. I'll do my best, and UCY TV will do its best to let you know in advance if we're going to have a pre-recorded program. At this point, I don't anticipate for sure that any programs will not be live, but there is that chance because of the heavy travel schedule that I have and the fact that the weather is sometimes iffy at that time of year. Well, our weather here in Little Rock, Arkansas area has cleared up for the time being. Another round of storms is on its way, but it's a ways from here now. The sirens have gone off, or have subsided. They've not been on for the last 5 or so minutes. So that's a good sign. We're in the all clear right now. But you never know this time of year, especially with air travel. They play it very, very safe these days. And if there's any threat, they don't want to take off or attempt a landing. I can remember, folks, very vividly. I was pretty white-knuckled coming back from a workshop, actually, and coming back into Little Rock. And we were coming in right in the middle, a storm cell, a severe storm cell, with a possible tornado in it, was right over the city. And there was a tiny little window from the air that the pilot could see that he thought maybe we could descend and make this little window and get on the ground before the storm hit with a fury. And as we began our descent, this storm crept up on us very carefully, and the pilot aborted that move very quickly and got us out of there. Thank goodness. And we had to divert to another city to land. We had to divert to Memphis, Tennessee, which is 2 hours away. And I am so glad that happened, because I think, from what I understand, all hell broke loose on the ground very shortly after we attempted that landing. So, and I had to come back to town by car, and on the way back between Memphis and the Little Rock, you could see debris all over the place. There were limbs down. There was a jam up on the freeway because of fallen limbs and power lines and whatnot. So glad we didn't try to land in that. So at any rate, long story short, be aware that in the month of May we could have some pre-recorded programs. We'll try to let you know, either by going to ucy.tv's website and seeing what's on tap, or noticing on my blog post on the Friday before anything that I have posted about whether or not the show will be live on Sunday night. Well, as I was mentioning earlier, we have a new series of articles on becoming a better person. I'm going to be talking about that over the next few weeks here in this program. I'm going to be talking about the mechanics of becoming a better person. Specifically, I'm going to be talking about a couple of the specific tools that I have developed as a clinician in my practice, helping people build a better character. Really, I had to get very, very creative, borrow some things, improve on some things, invent some new things, to come up with a really helpful program that would help people who are motivated sufficiently and who recognize that there are aspects of their character that needed improvement and who wanted to do the work to become a better person. You know, that's half the battle right there. That's half the battle. The mark of character disturbance, as I mentioned earlier, is that someone is aware, they're aware of how they're coming across. You know, we ask ourselves, don't they see what they're doing? Don't they see how other people see them? Don't they hear what they're saying? Oh, they do. It's not that they're not aware enough. It's that they don't care enough. They're content with who they are, how they've chosen to define themselves as a person, and they think you've got a problem if you've got a problem with them. And it's not that they don't see, I say these little rhyming phrases at workshops, it's not that they don't see, it's that they disagree. So it's not that they don't see what other people would say about their character that's a problem, it's that they disagree that it should be considered a problem. They disagree with other people's approach to life. They like their approach better. They disagree with how others want to define themselves as a person. They want to define themselves a different way. They think it's okay to be who they are and what they are, how they see things, how they do things. That's the very definition of character disturbance. That's why we're in the mess that we're in. And because we've lost any sense of outrage about it, because it's become so commonplace, because almost nothing surprises us anymore. We've become so desensitized. We're so used to it. And we don't demand it anymore. We don't demand character. It's getting so that we almost feel, some people do, I'm going to only speak for the examples that I'm aware of. I'm sure that folks hold different values, but I've been with people who now feel obliged. They feel obliged to tip at a restaurant at even a higher rate, 20%, even when the service is substandard, simply because of sensitivity toward the person who's serving and the fact that they're dependent upon that in large measure for their subsistence. You know, we don't demand the kind of integrity that we once demanded, that we once insisted upon. And what we have as a result is a character crisis the likes of which we've not seen. And it's only getting worse. But there is a wind of change afoot. You know, whenever the pendulum swings too far in one direction, there is just a natural force at work to bring it back. There is a natural force at work to bring things back to center when things get out of balance. And we've been out of balance now for a long time. Oh, I have another announcement I want to make, and I feel really troubled by this, but the fact that I even have to make the announcement. When people and let me preface this by saying we're coming up on the time of the year that I call the patriotic season. We have Memorial Day coming up not too far from now, and then Flag Day, then Independence Day, then Labor Day, then Memorial Day. And these are times when people request music. The theme song that you hear play at the beginning and end of our program that my wife and I co-wrote, commonly referred to as America, My Home, formal title of which is Anthem for the Millennium. We wrote it as an anthem for the new millennium, just before the turn of this new century, before the turn of the new millennium. We wrote it in 1998 and published it in 1999. But it didn't become popular until the events of 9/11 in 2001, when a regional ABC television affiliate that was feeding video to other outlets paired this song with a video montage of the week's events, and then it didn't quite go viral, but it got a lot of activity on the internet, and that's how America, My Home got popular to any degree, and got the exposure that it needed. But to make a long story short here, we're coming up in that season now. And when I charge a nominal fee, as we have to, for producing the accompaniment CDs and for running off the sheet music, et cetera, and for mailing costs and whatnot. And then anything received beyond the actual raw costs, I don't make any profit on the music. It was not its design. Its design was to carry a message and to inspire. That was its purpose. Any monies beyond that, or any additional donation that a person or an organization wants to make, let's say they're performing it for a civic group or some other kind of public gathering, patriotic picnic or something. Anything beyond that, I donate. I have donated in the past to the Wounded Warrior Project. I have made a regular contribution. Well, when the story broke that the two top executives of that organization were misusing funds, and that, the organization still does serve the needs of disabled veterans fairly well, but I was appalled to learn that any money that could have gone to assist or provide equipment for or help for disabled veterans was going for other purposes, for lavish lifestyle kinds of things. When I learned that, I simply could no longer contribute to Wounded Warrior Project. So I want my listeners to know, and anybody that's thinking about contacting me with respect to the song, or who has read information about how I handle the donations for it, I will not be making those contributions to that organization in the future until and unless there is hard evidence that it has cleaned up its act, it's turned around, gotten efficient, and that the money is really going where it needs to go. You know, in this country, we have hundreds of charitable organizations. We also have religious and other civic institutions. And the federal government, all doling out money by the billions, if not trillions, for social causes. By all rights, we should have cured every disease by now, and we should have adequately taken care of everyone in need. Something's really rotten. Something's really, really rotten in the system. And as I always say, and will say again, it all comes down to character. And we have to start caring about it again. We have to start making it matter. In the words of my good friend Tracy, who wanted to coin a little phrase to promote the notion, we need to make character cool again. Tracy, if you're listening, kudos to you for that, and a shout out to you. But that's what we need to do. We need to reinforce the notion that it matters, because it does matter. And we need to hold ourselves accountable. We need to demand what we used to demand so routinely, and not be afraid to demand it. We need to hold ourselves to some standards. Our freedom hangs in the balance. So as you listen at the close of the show to the theme song, to the piece that my wife and I wrote to help inspire, remember that that's what the sentiment is. America's greatness is not in its military might or its economic power. It never has been. It never will be. America's greatness has always been in its people of good character who honor her best ideals and who serve those ideals and live them out in their daily lives and make the survival of freedom possible. So with that in mind, have another good week, and I hope you tune in again next Sunday evening for another edition of Character Matters. Until then, I'm Dr. George Simon. Thanks for tuning in tonight. I'll see you again next week. Have a good night.